We have our first ever polling averages between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. We have state-by-state data, and in this video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on these new aggregates. We'll begin by taking a look at the national polling average, where Donald Trump leads by 2.1% based on 76 polls conducted over the past year and a half. Donald Trump has maintained a clear and consistent lead over the vice president throughout the entirety of the 2024 election so far. Compare this to what we saw in 2020, and you'll see just how much better Trump is doing this time around. 4 years ago, Biden maintained a consistent lead throughout the entirety of the 2020 election on the national level. There was never a point where Trump even came close to overtaking the now president. However, looking at 2024, things are completely different. Donald Trump is now the candidate that has been ahead throughout the entirety of the cycle, with there being not a single point in time where Kamala Harris has even come close to overtaking the former president. Coming back to the map, we're going to start off on the West Coast and move our way eastward, starting off with the states of Washington, Oregon, and California. These are solid blue states. We have some polls from these states that indicate that Kamala Harris is indeed on track to win, but states like Washington and Oregon are definitely going to be more competitive than they were 4 years ago, and so we'll cover those polls when they come out, but right now, we do not have polling averages from these three states. However, we do have a new average in Nevada, one of the most important states in the country, a state that Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton won in the last two elections, but Donald Trump is on track to easily flip this November. According to the average in the Silver State, Donald Trump leads by 8.6% based on 4 polls. Looking at the polls that have been conducted, one of them, conducted by Insider Advantage, was actually done just 2 weeks ago. Donald Trump leads by 10%, 50-40. This is a relatively recent poll. We also have numbers from February and May of this year that showed Trump with a commanding lead. There's no doubt that the former president is the favorite to win in Nevada, despite no Republican having won the state since 2004. And so on this map, the state of Nevada is going to be likely Republican. That is just how red of a state Nevada is. It is probably going to vote to the right of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Next up, in Arizona, this is another state that Trump is on track to easily win this November, despite Biden having carried it 4 years ago. Arizona voted for the now president by 0.3%. Biden actually flipped Arizona, winning it for the Democrats for the first time since 1996. So it was a pretty big victory, but it is not going to last into the next election. In 2016, Trump won Arizona by 3.5%, and this year he's going to win the state again by at least this margin. Trump has been very dominant in Arizona polling over the past year, and looking at how he's performing against Kamala Harris, I mean, you can see here clearly Donald Trump is going to win back the state. He leads by 7.2%. This is based on 5 polls. If you compared this polling to the polling between Trump and Biden, you would see a pretty similar lead. And looking at the 5 polls that have been conducted, 2 of them were done just this month, Trump plus 6 and Trump plus 8. It doesn't seem like the state of Arizona is going to be too competitive this time around. I mean, a poll from May had the former president ahead by nearly double digits. So Arizona is going to be likely Republican as well. We're also going to fill in many of the solid red states in the middle of the country that simply aren't going to be competitive. Donald Trump has won states like Idaho, Wyoming, the Dakotas by solid margins in both 2016 and 2020. There's no doubt he's going to win these states again by at least a solid 12-point margin in 2024. So these states of Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, as well as nearly all of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, all going to be solid red. Before we continue, only 10% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please take the time right now to subscribe for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And follow me on Twitter for daily political updates, link in the description below. Moving on now to Colorado and New Mexico, 2 states that went to Biden by solid margins in 2020. Colorado by 14 points, New Mexico by 11. two easy victories for the now president, but these two states were closer in 2016. Colorado was decided by just 5 points, and New Mexico by 8.2. Colorado this time around is definitely not going to be solid. It will be likely for Kamala Harris at best, while New Mexico is currently expected to be lean for the vice president. As Hispanic voters continue to move away from Democrats in general, the Democratic Party is going to struggle in states like New Mexico, where the majority of the population is Hispanic. Down in Texas, 40 electoral votes from the Lone Star State. This was a state the Democrats thought they had a chance at winning in 2020. I mean, Joe Biden lost the state by 5 points, which was honestly a pretty good performance for a Democrat. But even though they spent hundreds of millions of dollars in Texas, they were still unable to win, and there's no doubt that they're not going to win in 2024. Donald Trump is easily going to carry Texas, probably by around a 10-point margin. It could be over 12, so Texas could be solid, but it is probably more likely that it falls into the likely range. We also have the 2nd District of Nebraska, which will be lean Republican. Donald Trump is favored to win that district back, while Alaska is a solid red state, Hawaii solid blue, and we're now going to move on to the Midwest, which is probably the most important region in the country, and we have quite a few polling averages for many of the key states in the region. We're going to begin with Minnesota, which we're going to give to Kamala Harris as a lean blue state. We're going to give her the benefit of the doubt as we don't currently have a polling average, and it's a state the Democrats haven't lost in 52 years. However, if Donald Trump was running against Joe Biden still, he probably would have been able to win the state of Minnesota. But considering that the incumbent president has dropped out, Democrats are in slightly better shape in Minnesota, despite the state continuing to shift to the right. Iowa, though, is going to be a solid red state. Donald Trump won it by 8 points in 2020, 9 points in 2016, even though Obama carried it by 6 in just 2012. So Iowa has taken a pretty dramatic shift to the right over the last 8 years, and there's no doubt that Trump is going to expand upon his 2020 margin and make Iowa safe red this November. We're now going to move up to Wisconsin, which is going to be more competitive and arguably significantly more important. The states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are essentially make or break for Harris. She has to win nearly all 3 of these states if she wants to have a shot at getting over 270 electoral votes. For Trump, though, as long as he wins just 1 out of these 3 states, if he wins Michigan, it is basically over for the vice president. And so looking at the polling we're seeing right now in Wisconsin, Donald Trump currently leads by 1.8% on average based on the 5 most recent polls. Looking at what we've been seeing over the last few weeks, 2 polls from July show Trump ahead by 1%. However, a poll from May had the former president leading by 8. Now, this margin may not seem that impressive, but Wisconsin is a state where polls have consistently overestimated Democrats. In the 2020 election, Joe Biden was supposed to win Wisconsin by 7%. He eventually won it by just 0.6, not even 1/10 of the margin he was predicted to win by. And so the fact that Trump is ahead here is a pretty big deal. Wisconsin will be lean Republican on our map. Illinois, though, is going to be solid blue. Kamala Harris is definitely favored here. The margin could be under 12%, but we're just going to have to wait and see. While Indiana is, of course, solid Republican, and Ohio as well. This is J.D. Vance's home state. There's no doubt Trump is going to win it by at least 12 points after carrying it by 8% in the last 2 elections. Michigan, though, is going to be more competitive. If Democrats lose Michigan, the election is basically over. Out of all 3 of the upper Rust Belt states, Michigan is the most liberal. In fact, Joe Biden won Michigan by 2.8%, while only winning Pennsylvania by 1.2% and Wisconsin by 0.3%. Michigan was also the state that Hillary Clinton lost by the smallest margin in 2016 when Trump won it by 0.2%, despite winning Pennsylvania and Wisconsin by 0.7%. Today, the former president is expected to win the Wolverine state by 2.2% against Kamala Harris. This is based on 3 polls, one of which was conducted just 2 weeks ago, and 2 of them are from May and October. And so this really shows you just how consistent Trump's lead in Michigan has been. He's been ahead by 2 to 3 points throughout the past year. And so right now, the state of Michigan is lean Republican, and this should be pretty concerning for Democrats, as the moment Trump wins Michigan, we can basically call the election. Donald Trump will get to 270, because without Michigan, there's basically no path forward for Democratic nominees. Pennsylvania is also going to be very important. If Trump wins Pennsylvania, you could also call the election there. I mean, that's just how things are right now. Joe Biden won the election because he won these 3 states. Yes, he also won Georgia and Arizona, but this was by smaller margins. He did not need to win these states to win the election, but what he did need was Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. In 2016, Hillary Clinton lost these 3 states, and that's why she didn't win. If she had won these 3 states, which were all decided by margins less than 1%, she would have been elected the 45th president. And so looking at what we're seeing in the Keystone State today, Donald Trump has a 4.6% lead, his largest lead out of the 3 blue wall states, based on 7 polls. We have 4 polls from the month of July, one of them conducted from the 20th to the 21st, and the 21st was the day that Joe Biden dropped out. So looking at these polls, Trump has maintained a consistent lead in Pennsylvania as well. The state simply hasn't been that close. It's even almost a likely state on our map, but for right now, Pennsylvania will remain in the lean Republican column. Trump is the clear favorite, and with none of these 3 Rust Belt states even remotely blue, Kamala Harris has a very long uphill battle ahead of her. Up in the Northeast, we don't have much polling, but we do know that New York and New Jersey are going to be a lot more competitive than normal, while Delaware, Maryland, the District of Columbia are still going to be solid blue, along with Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and the 1st District of Maine. New Hampshire is currently lean Democratic. It can definitely get close. Trump can definitely win. But for right now, we're going to give Kamala Harris the benefit of the doubt, just like in Minnesota. While the state of Maine as a whole is also lean Democratic, it's going to be a lot closer than it was last time. And the 2nd District is solid red. There's no doubt Trump is going to win it. Moving down to the southeast, a lot of these states are guaranteed victories for the former president. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia, all guaranteed to vote Republican. We're now left with just 4 more states, and we're going to begin in Virginia, a state that Joe Biden probably would have lost if he had stayed in the election. Donald Trump actually took the lead in the polling average in Virginia right before he announced his intentions to drop out of the campaign. I mean, Joe Biden losing a state that he won by 10 points 4 years prior would have been devastating for the Democratic Party. Virginia is a state that didn't elect a single Republican statewide official for over 10 years before the election of Glenn Youngkin as governor in 2021. That is how blue the state was over the last decade, but today, Virginia is a lot more competitive. Kamala Harris maintains a 2.6% lead over Trump in the state. She leads by 2 points in the most recent poll, but a poll from just a few days ago shows Trump actually ahead by 1. We also have a poll from earlier this month that indicates a tie between the 2 candidates. So Virginia is definitely too close for comfort for Democrats, and currently it will only be a lean Democratic state. North Carolina, though, is going to be likely Republican. Trump won the state by 1%, even though basically every poll said that he was going to lose. This time, there's no doubt Trump is the favorite in the Tar Heel state. We do have a polling average in Georgia, though. The former president leads by 4.6% based on the 8 most recent polls. I mean, Trump leads in every single poll. There's no doubt he is going to lose the Peach State again. He lost it by the smallest possible margin in 2020, but that was when Trump was in a significantly worse position than he is in now. Trump was the incumbent president at the time, and that is definitely something that weighed him down. Today, Biden is the one in office, Kamala Harris as his vice president, and so just that alone would be enough to push Trump over the finish line in Georgia. Georgia is a lean Republican. And finally, Florida, 30 electoral votes. There's no doubt Trump is going to win it. He's won it in the last 2 elections, and the state simply is not competitive anymore. Florida is a red state. It is by no means a battleground, at least in this election, and probably for many elections to come. And so based on current polling averages, Donald Trump is on track to win 313 electoral votes to Kamala Harris with 225. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. Join my Discord server, link in the description below, and like this video down below if you enjoyed it, and comment down below who you think is going to win between Harris and Trump.